Hi everyone, it's Stanford here. It's great to have you again. It's Africa Day today, the 25th of May. It's a significant day across the African continent. Many African countries celebrate it as a national holiday. Some do and some do not. Um, and no judging on those that do not celebrate this day. I think there is different views, about it, and there's been so many debates about that topic, but that's not, our discussion for today. Today we're just talking about what does it mean to be African? Are we proud to be Africans? What does being African make you feel? What difference does it make in your life? This is just a casual conversation about us being Africans, wherever we are, the different things that we do. Today we are joined, we have got Dorcas, who's in from Cape Town. We've got Herbert he's joining us from Italy. And we've got Paul in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Welcome, guys. What does it mean to be African today? Like, being Africa Day, what does it mean to be African, Herbert? Like, to you, how do you interpret this?
Yeah, well, it means that I'm black.
I've seen Africans who
I'm
are not
joking.
black.
No, yes, of course. It's my talent for sure. Yes, I mean we can all argue whatever whether they're color or not, but I don't think it's really about color. For me, it just means that your roots or your origins are from Africa, and I also believe that there is no continent at this moment, as far as I know, that has the best weather than Africa, and that people that have the best skin than Africans. We are very resistant to so much weather. You know how you can go to the beach and nobody cares because there's no sunscreen, but you can stay there for some time. Nothing happens very much until it gets really, really hot. This is what I am proud
Yeah.
of being African.
And that's something that I've said to a number of people before, and they do not understand, or do not believe when I tell them that I can go to the beach for the whole day, no
Yes,
sunscreen, whatever, and nothing happens to me.
sure.
I call it's the leather.
Yes,
I call it having the leather. Paul, being African, what is it to you, man?
Yes, first of all, you guys need to see a dermatologist. But yeah, being African is at the end of every day, chickens have to go home and roost. And we have this
Mm.
rooster. Africa is our home. Africa is a bird's nest. We always say if you go out to work and you get hit left, right, and center, there's always a home you have to go to and recollect and reclaim. And Africa is that to us. And for me, being African is diversity. We have diverse ethnic groups. We have diverse languages, our cultures, and yet we make it work on the, I think, the planet. Yeah.
Mm. Wow, that was rich actually, and a good different perspective on the approach of what being African means, or how you relate to being African. Um, Dorcas, what does being African mean for you?
Um, Being African to me, like Herbert says, like if someone asks me that, the first thing that comes to my mind is probably the fact that I'm black, even though there are non-black Africans. But it's literally the first thing that comes to my mind. And it's so unfortunate that I haven't actually like thought deep about what it means to be African, maybe because I'm African. So I don't really see anything that I have to ponder on. I feel I will probably get to think about it more if I didn't live in Africa, but I was African. Then I would get to compare with other cultures. But right now, being African doesn't really mean much, I think. But what I do appreciate about Africa is that we are probably more morally grounded compared to other people from different continents. So we have a culture, we can turn back to our backgrounds, and that could lead us forward, our religious diversity as well. So that's what I appreciate about being African. But what it means, I think it is something to really ponder about. Then I will get to see what it means.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting point that you say that because you're African, at times you don't really get to think of what does it mean being African. It's like being asked, what does it mean to be poor? Like, I'm
Exactly.
poor.
Yeah, like what does it have to mean if I'm
I don't
poor?
know. I think the point is it's not what does it mean being African when you're African. What
Yeah,
does it mean being African in Africa does not really have this impact, like what she mentioned. It has somehow an impact what it means being an African in Canada, in the States,
exactly.
in everywhere. The reason why I also say that talk about African, it's like black. Why? Because if you go to the States, they're called African Americans. I've never seen white people, even if they are of African origins, being
Yeah.
called African Americans. African part is like black Americans, not really
But can a
African.
white person be said to be of African origin?
Yes. I
Why
think
not?
they should be. Why not? I mean, they were born there. I think you can actually see some other people who are more African, some white people that are really more Africans than the black Africans, that really claim to be really Africans. So not really claim that are proud to be African more than the actual black people. This is also true. The reverse is true. We can also find black people that are actually from Europe, from anywhere, that claim to be more European than African. So it all depends on
So
how you see it.
I think
does
that
this
in sensitive semantics here. When you talk of origin, if you're saying we're African by origin, it means
Yes.
that is originate from actually the real literal sense of meaning of the word. So you can be of another, you can be Caucasian African if you're talking of origin, but you can be born in Africa and still be an African by birth or an African by right. But originally, when you want to check who really the real Africans are, we go back to the Khoi and the Fans and all that. Yeah, but one of you were saying that I appreciate what you guys were saying when you said that.
So which
I
African are we celebrating here? Is it the one of origin or by birth or right? Or which one are we talking about?
I, I wanted to talk about the issue of awareness. I am aware of myself, the self awareness that we have to have as an individual. When someone asks, what does it mean to be poor? I can define that if there was need for me to do that. But the relevance of this discussion today is to bring awareness to people who don't have that awareness of what it means to be African, because there is a meaning. It can be sentimental, but there still is a meaning that has to be attached to being an African. That brings value to an individual.
Yes, but,
so
but are we talking about the origins or by birth? This African part, that's what are we, what is your perspective on
So,
that?
yeah, Dorcas, you wanted to.
well, I think that if you're going to talk about the relevance of being African, it has to be from someone who was born in Africa, who has stayed in Africa. Even like for most people, like for example, white people, they were
A
born in
lot of people, a lot of people will not agree with you there.
but
Go
then
ahead.
because then you would be able to state how important it is to you because you've experienced the Africanness, you have lived in Africa and you have become part of Africa, even though your origin is somewhere else, but then you are living in Africa, so that's how you get to describe how it is to you. But of course, being African has to come from the origin part of it and not just the experience part of it.
Yeah, and Africanicity. You can acquire Africanicity. We embrace you because we are a divergent and we're actually a diverse people. We embrace people who come in to embrace our Africanicity. That makes you African. If you come to live among us, that makes you African. We call you
You're one of
African.
us. Yes.
Yeah, you're one of us. But when it comes to real definitions of the sense of origin, like someone just said now, Jokers, I appreciate what you said when you said, I didn't really ponder into what it means, me being African, but I think just for a second, we hang on too much on political definitions that are given to us by people in power. If you look in the States, we have got African Americans being black people. You rarely find, like Herbert said, a Caucasian African American. So when you come up from a political perspective, we are Africans as in color. And then
So
you
that's
find
a
our black.
and that's a very interesting point, and I think maybe that's where maybe as Africa we have been different from other continents as well, because I think as Africans we have embraced everyone regardless of where they come from or where they formerly were from. When they are in Africa, they become Africans. With time, they become uh, labeled as Africans. However, like you say, the example of in other parts of the world, if you're African, you're always an African something else. It's not no one when people ask you where are you from, you can't state anything and not get to the point. They will keep if they ask you that where are you from, then you say I'm from Toronto, and they say okay yeah, but before that where were you from? And they're like I was born in Toronto. Okay, so but your origin, you understand? But you
Yeah,
find that
yeah.
when you speak to someone who is white, when someone says to them where are you from and they say I'm from Toronto, people say okay that's fine, and then they move on, right? No
Yeah.
one gets to a point of saying but you don't look indigenous, here, which means that you are actually originally not from Canada. It's just an interesting point, and I think then that comes to the question of saying, so in this Africa Day, what Africa Day do we celebrate? I think the Africanness that we celebrate is anyone who is contributing towards the growth of Africa, who is part of Africa, who identifies with being African, regardless of the fact of where were you born, where did you grow up, how do you feel. So you'll find that in Africa Day, we still celebrate African parents who went to the diaspora, got children there, and are raising their children in the diaspora out of Africa. We still celebrate them as part of Africa Day. At the same time, we still celebrate the people that have come from elsewhere. Yeah, Paul?
I want to disagree with you there, Stan, blatantly. To do that, we lose friends of Africa. There has to be people that we just friends of Africa. You don't really have to become African because you brought us telecom and
You brought us
who
5G.
and friends of Africa, like the Chinese. The Chinese have been friends for Africa for the longest time. Our friendship is questionable right now. We still celebrate them as friends. But yeah, Asian and still be friends of Africa.
Yeah, but okay, maybe my point I expressed it differently, but the point I was trying to make is, especially if someone has been born within Africa, in an African country, for me, I still regard them as African. Now, you spoke about the political definitions that box us. And I agree with that. Yeah, when it comes to the political definitions, they're the ones that try to separate. But there are people that were born in Africa, they don't know anywhere else. And this was part of the challenge even in Zimbabwe when they were doing a land distribution, when they were saying, go back where you came from. Like some people were saying, what do you mean I must go back where did I come from? Because I come from here.
But
Yeah.
like that point I do understand, but for me, I'm thinking we're celebrating Africa Day. I think that the Africa itself has been infiltrated. Why I say that, right? So it kind of gives me no point really to celebrate something because it's not really pure anymore. Our cultures have changed. What we believe in have changed. For example, there's the issue of like the lobola thing. Most African people do that. And then at the same time, they want to do like a Western wedding once they have done a lobola thing. So we've come to adopt a lot of things that are not of us. That are we still Africa at the end of the day?
Wow, that's an interesting.
Very, yeah, that's quite pretty interesting.
Talking about the whole different topic altogether.
Man, this lobola thing killed me.
No. The point is, I totally agree with Dorcas too. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, all these weddings, whatever, I'm talking from the perspective of weddings, all these lobola wedding, the traditional wedding and the white wedding, they're all cultural. It's just that this is African culture, the other one is white culture, you know. But we are incorporating both of them. This is my first perspective. And this actually heads to my second question that was like, well, yes, we know we are Africans. And this question of what we believe as Africans, we used to believe in our ancestors that they have to talk to God. And they would do this era in Zimbabwe where they would do this and then the water will actually rain. Then Christianity came, which we believe is really good. And then Islamic also came, which we believe is also good. But then it also changes everything, that what do we really believe as Africans? Because at the end of the day, we are Africans, but we believe in a different context.
It's up to a different level. Because now if you incorporate culture and religion and want to argue it against the background of what we had last before you even interrupt me, let me tell you this quickly. Before I got that fruit, think of Charlize Theron, and you bumping into each other in a street. Charlize Theron is South African. She was born here. She is more European over that side than you are, even if you were born in Europe. So there are things we have to get accept real politically. We have Sandy Newton. She was born on the other side. She was born in Europe. To make it easy, take Sandy Newton and take Charlize Theron. Sandy Newton was born in Europe. Charlize Theron was born in Africa. But now Charlize Theron is now African American. Well, she's now European or American. Whereas Sandy Newton is African American. It's actually a reversal of roles. That's one. The second thing is that culture, like Dorcas was saying, that we incorporated in white practices. Culture, like any other thing, evolves. We are sitting in the evolution of culture. Before we even think of incorporating any other practice from somewhere else.
We are not evolving. No,
we haven't
we are not evolving.
We just adapting something that's
we
not
are
ours.
doing this twice. We are not evolving. This is not an evolution. This is a being twice. No. Let's not. Let's agree that you're not evolving. Two things.
So you guys tell me, this thing, what does it do? Because I see there's a fighting of this. Is it
there is one culture and another one. So
exactly.
Okay. Let's come to Dorcas. No, wait. Let's allow you and Herbert to fight it out later. But Dorcas, me and you, let's bring the sanity back to this conversation, right?
Same thing. This is question. Means it's on. I'm not gonna let it go. All right.
No. I was just kidding. But the reality of the matter is this is the interesting part, because this is where it shows that actually what it means to be African it's so dynamic and different. I'll use this example. Like, some countries actually celebrate Africa Day. Like, strongly celebrate Africa Day. Back in the day when we were growing up in Zimbabwe, Africa Day, you study about it at school. When it's Africa Day, it's a public holiday, but during that week we'll be singing songs, we'll be acting dramas to speak to being African. But other African countries, you know what?
Not really.
It's a day. Yeah. So what? It's not a holiday. It's doesn't have so much significance. So that speaks onto that fact. Yeah.
And that's more common to countries that are more westernized. Like more westernized countries, they barely celebrate Africa Day. But those countries that look like, the rural areas or the countries that are less developed, those are the ones that stick to celebrating Africa Day because it's still relevant to them. The westernized countries, they've just evolved as as poets and they just ignore it and move on with their lives.
So in other words, countries that are less developed, they identify with being African than
No.
those that are
Exactly.
developed. Wow.
Poor countries, let's put it in another words. Poor countries are more African. Eh?
Yes, exactly.
So you're
These
saying being
countries are more
African is
Western.
synonymous with being poor or what? Actually, that's a very good point, which we need maybe to dissect.
This is true. I
No,
mean,
no,
this is
no, no,
true.
no. There's nothing
No,
good in
no.
that. I want to address this point directly. It's not like African poor countries are more attuned to their Africanicity. It is mostly Africans that helped each other during revolutionary struggles like the attainment of independence. They identify to each other. They identify with each other with celebrating these things because they share this same common base. However, like I was saying, I want to talk about the evolution of culture. Here in South Africa, mostly among the Xhosas, there is initiation that occurs to young boys, circumcision, and people are taken to the bush. We were talking with another friend how people are dying when they go out into the bush there. Not everybody dies, I mean, but there is a lesser way, a way with lesser harm to go into the hospital. Still go to the bush, get initiated in the ways of the people without being cut with unsafe surgical instruments. In that sense, you would be dumb to not. Right now, they're now assigning ambulances to initiation schools. It's not westernizing initiation, but it's vetting the risk that is associated with using an unruly instrument. So, in that sense, culture has to evolve with our time to catch up and still adjust itself while we're still practicing it to being
Bobo,
less harmful.
So do we
That
choose
that
which
basically,
culture should evolve and we leave others to not evolve? Like in this case, we have chosen that this initiation one has evolved, but the Lobola one hasn't evolved. We just decided to adapt another one and move on with that. Which
The guy
one?
who
but
with the
but but
phone,
but
it's evolution of the process, you know.
but
It's
also the Lobola one, by the way, has evolved, but it has evolved in a different way. It has not evolved in the way of saying we are no longer paying Lobola. It has evolved in the way that Lobola is now a money making business. So
Exactly.
it has
yes. I
evolved in
mean,
a way that it's a serious investment having a girl child. That's how it has
Yes.
evolved. Like,
Yeah.
yes,
of
yes, for
course there
sure. I
are.
mean, this is true. I mean, I agree with you all guys. I mean, when it comes to talk of cultural differences, this is okay. This is true. And the sad part about it is when these things are being done, it's like I think we need to come to a point of choosing. No, either we want to evolve and try to add some other things to this, it's okay. But if you want to do like to try to add some of the Western cultures to our African culture, this doesn't work sometimes because if you are going to do the Lobola thing and everything, yes, I would argue, no matter how much people say I'm wrong, if you pay for you pay Lobola, you pay for your wife, and you're supposed to react the same way you would react for someone who does not pay for their wife. If their wives cheat, that's not gonna be. I mean, that's not possible. I mean, for sure,
I paid
that's
money
not
for
gonna
this.
be
I
possible.
bought you.
Yes, for sure. There is an element of objectivism. It's handy there. It's handy there. So that's why I always say that, guys. If they want to change, let them evolve in a way that actually is free and fair to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to do the Lobola, they have to be this. And now the things have changed. The wife also goes to work. The guy also goes to work. There are some things that used to because before they say, oh, the wife will cook for you and do that, and when you go to work, but now things have changed. You also need to
Yeah.
help your wife. You also need to do this. You also need so this. How do we incorporate this kind of thing? I think that needs to be actually taken into account.
I actually know of a guy also. I know people, so I'm gonna tell you of guys I know. I know of a guy paid the baller money, and he was working in one city, and the woman was working in another city, and the guy was insisting she has to move to my city now because I paid the money. I can't pay and still leave my job here to go and stay with their boss. They were all working in different cities, and you also have your classical cases where um, every culture and cultural practice comes with its implications. If we're going to say let's stick and hold on to this kind of tradition, you have to understand that that culture also came with polygamy. So you can't want to say to me, I paid money and married you, and now when I want to add on my cows, I have more cows now. I feel like I can dispense on three
We
or
can still do polygamy. We can still do polygamy because it happens in the background anyways. So if we're going to keep our, if we're going to keep our,
You are one person that I agree with. It's
in the
actually even
background.
safer. No. It's actually even safer for people to do polygamy than what's
yes,
happening right now. Because
exactly.
at this particular time is one of the reasons why AIDS actually is on the rise. Because it's actually abolished, but it does not mean that this is not happening. And the
What did
problem
you
is,
say, Paul?
You
Come back
guys
home.
you
You need to
guys
come
are
back home. You
ungovernable.
need to
You guys are ungovernable. I can't. Okay, but this is interesting discussions. So we are saying, being African means a lot.
this is what us.
the thing is, Stanley, the polygamy is supposed to be reinvented.
Yes,
Like
polygamy must
introduced.
happen. A guy must marry
Polygamy
a lot
must
of
introduce.
girls, and a girl can marry many
Because
men if you
don't
want.
I saying these things are always happening anyway. With
Yes, they're
wars
happening
and
anyway.
everything, they are happening anyway.
Okay. So this issue of polyandry and polygamy, being African. Okay, let's bring it back home. Let's refocus here. Okay,
Yes.
let's yeah. Now here's another question. Now to say, so like we said, in 1963, that's when the OAU was started, and then which was the precursor of the African Union. When you actually talk of the OAU, you start exposing your age, because people start calculating, if you know about the OAU, all right. But my question is, like, to a young person now, if you hear African Union, what does it have any significance? Because, like, I really feel like, I don't know, it's a bunch of old people that meet somewhere. I don't know what they discuss. I
To
don't
be
know.
honest,
And they go to hotels and eat money.
I've heard more about the AU during this corona pandemic than ever. And I'm actually getting to think, what is this? What is the AU? Like, what does it do? I actually don't know, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are also many people who are like me, as young as I am, who just hear about it and actually don't know its relevance or what it does for us.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Yeah, Ebet, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, from my perspective, what I know is that there are a bunch of old folks that go to fancy hotels and meet and do wonderful things and eat and just do a broadcast. But I mean, I'm just joking. But most of it appears like this. I mean, it's more of um, they're trying to unite Africa. But one of the things, the challenges is when money is actually not in your pocket and someone has to put it inside, it's a little bit difficult because the one who puts the money in the pocket kinds of puts the
Controls.
direction in which where you want to go.
Mm.
I think there are suggestions that have been said that let's use the same currency for the whole Africa. The whole issue of where the, the issue of gay rights and has to be imposed on African nations, saying that they've got their own sovereignty, either to choose whether that they want to agree to this or not. They have to, it's they're up to them. But now it's like if you don't adhere to it, it's a violation of human rights. But I mean, we have our own culture. Maybe it supports it, maybe it doesn't. But I mean, we should be able in a position to say yes or no. So I think they still play a significant role, but not that much because they don't have the money.
So, in a nutshell, is the AU okay? So I'm actually confusing the AU and the UN, I think. But is the AU supposed to like bring African countries together? Is that its purpose or
I
what?
think for me, I
One of
think for
its
me,
actually.
when it comes to
Yeah.
the AU, um, they were effective in a certain period of time. When the vision was
Okay.
clear, one unite Africa, they managed to bring about independence of African nations, which was good. They failed in their mandate when revolutionaries began to die. We had people who were advocating, like Muammar Gaddafi, who were advocating for the United States of Africa. When these
Mm,
guys met their demise the way they did, it
mm,
brought the relevance of the AU into question. there's also an issue. It's very funny now. If you look in world politics today, it seems as if one sole candidate, the American president, speaks more on Africa than African
Yeah,
organs themselves. You get to
exactly.
hear about African issues from European and American leaders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think this is actually sad because if you think about it, the fact that if a lot of us cannot understand and relate to the significance of the African Union, and we are called an African people, we are Africa, we are the second biggest continent in the world, 1.3 billion people. Come on, with more than 50% of us being less than 25 years old, you realize what it means is that we are actually directionless. We are not
yeah,
being led. There's a
yeah,
dearth of leadership. There's no kombandlela for the African continent to say this is where we are going. There's no point of reference where all Africans come, because when it was formed, the OAU, it was the likes of Kwame Nkrumah and the four bearers in all these countries. They had that relation. You would find that in all these countries, you find a highway called Kwame Nkrumah or Samora Machel or Nelson Mandela, which was part of bringing all these countries together so that they could harness, their ability, put collectiveness together and achieve something. And at the moment, the fact that we cannot feel the importance of the African Union or feel the importance of one specific body uniting us all together as Africans and saying this is the direction we are taking, actually then means, where are we going? It begs the question to say, are we on the right path here or not? Like, really,
yeah.
this is sad.
Yeah, like even if you think of a question like, is Africa developing? Are we doing well compared to other countries? The question is, are we doing well in what? Because we don't have a direction where we're saying we have to go this way so that we will say we've achieved our goals. And I think groups like the AU are the people that are actually supposed to be giving us that direction, which we are lacking right now.
Yeah. So in this sense, what then are we supposed to do? Okay, sorry, Paul. I had you muted there. You can go ahead.
We speak numbers so well in Africa. We speak numbers so good. The problem is we can't refine our own numbers. We can be the most continent in the world in terms of raw materials. Right now, the whole world is moving towards communication,
Green energy.
integration of technology into almost everything. You saw Rwanda individually, they put up robots to deal with this COVID-19 crisis. And we don't have shared interest where we sit together and say, okay, well, this is a pandemic that is actually going to hit the whole continent hard if measures are not really put in place properly. You get one country come up with a solution here, the issue of Madagascar. We isolate each other when we come up with solutions.
Yeah.
It seems like we even have to compete with another continent. Competing with ourselves, just marking ourselves to say, are we doing better? I don't think we are doing well. Just in a nutshell, and everybody else. I think the OAU achieved this mandate 40 years ago, 30 years ago, but they need refreshment. There has to be someone who presses that refresher windows.
Yeah.
We need a new vision. We need to develop a new direction.
And I think that new vision is part of what we are doing, right? It's about young Africans from different countries coming together, starting to push, to push towards certain goals that we want to achieve as a block and not just as individuals, and helping each other. If you think about it, like we're saying, the issue about during the war is because our forebearers, they found a common purpose. They found a common enemy. They found a common goal. And that's what bound them together. That's what made them come together. And if we cannot get that, if we cannot define what is our common enemy of today, in South Africa, they talk about the three-pronged enemy, which is poverty, unemployment, and inequality. If we cannot, as an African continent, find that we can all hold together and work towards, I don't know.
then we're not going
We're not going
anywhere.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still feel like as Africans, how we have defined success or development is that we are trying to mirror some European countries. If we become more like America, then we say we are now developed or we are now successful. But then that's not the way it should be. We should define it ourselves so that we don't get to be rude.
Wow.
I think
That's
overall,
that's great.
all comes down to harnessing our potential. The potential that we have in terms of human resource, in terms of natural resources, natural caring resources, just being having the ability to harness our potential and converting it into something that brings attention, not just attention, revenue to us. The other thing we created these regional blocks ourselves. Trade tariffs. Uh, there's been talk of borderless nations now. I don't really understand why I needed a visa to go into my neighboring country. I mean, it really doesn't really make sense to me. If I'm going to cross two borders, maybe. I don't think I need a visa to go to Zambia or to Malawi or to Mozambique. It should just be a free flowing system, the way the United States put up their own face and putting governors like that. We might not have one leader, but I think we should then now begin to look and steer ourselves towards a borderless Africa. Of course, there will always be one or two regent nations that you need to regulate and really monitor, but over and above, when it comes to trade, we need to open up our borders as Africa to each other. We are opening our borders to foreign continents. Asia is coming into Africa easily, but it's hard for another African country to come in to invest and to do business with another fellow African counterpart, just because of these
Yeah.
regulations we've put among ourselves.
Yeah. And I just wanted I put this off online, about which countries celebrate Africa Day as a holiday. I'm now then beginning to ask myself, was your diagnosis and the hypothesis of saying it's the poorish countries that still celebrate Africa Day? Because you've got only, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 out of 54, only 9 countries actually observe Africa Day as a national holiday. And this
Yeah,
really brings about that question of, the significance of, is this still significant today or not?
yes, I think the whole issue African or African Union is that like I think when we need to define what we mean our own development, the things that we think that makes our life better. The unfortunate part is that the things that we actually are trying to run to are mostly what the developed nations are trying to run from. For example, the things I would think of pollution itself, this whole developed thing. I'm not saying that people are not supposed to be developed. There is quite more pollution here than it is in Africa because of development, of course. One, that's the first part. They're trying to run away from that, trying to go green. We've been going green because we don't have the technology. We've been using solar most of the times. If you start talking about food itself, we have got much organic food. Like that wild cucumber. I think most people know this one with like thorns. Here it costs probably €5, but I can get this for free in Africa. Just go get it. But at any given time, it's not the ice cream that makes you developed. No, it's actually when you talk about poverty, it's not that poverty. I think we should define it that you don't have something to eat. But if you've got natural things to really eat, it's actually better than anything else. But this whole has to do with people actually also being educated. Sometimes we're not really like poor or anything because we have all the things that we need. The only thing maybe that we don't have might be higher tech technology. But without all this higher tech technology, our immune system might not even need this high tech technology because you're already strong enough because of the resources that we have. But if we have the ability to use that what we have to actually to our advantage and come to a point of satisfactory to say we are satisfied. Yes, we can move forward in improving our lives, but using the technology that is probably locally available and that we can harness from this. Like solar energy, for example, we probably don't need coal. But how many of the buildings in Africa, even if we have got power cuts and all this, why do we use coal? Why not invest actually in solar? Because we have got quite a higher number of days that we receive sun than any other continent. But we do not have even a solar powerhouse. Why? I mean, this
So
is
if
just a
it,
matter of.
so you also mentioned something about being educated, but I do know some African countries that have a high number of educated people, but they're still poor. So what are we doing wrong?
No. They are literate. No, there's a difference between educated and literate. There's the
Okay.
literacy rate. You know, they
So,
are literate. They can
so you are
speak
not saying we
English.
are
They
saying
can
we are
write.
not. You are saying we are not educated,
But
young men.
No. You should also need. There's that angle. You can also take a different angle. That if we take it in a different angle, they are intelligent people that actually were able to reproduce what was said in class, and then they were able to reproduce it. 1+1 = 2. Then you ask them 1+1, then they say 2. No. If
yeah.
then whatsoever happened in the transmission of 1+1, which is more other variables, they cannot actually apply the knowledge that they have learned, which now becoming clever. So you might have intelligent people that are not clever. They can only
So
answer
you're
to
smart.
exactly
I
what you ask.
the plight that we have as Africa, we have got crazy, stupid leaders. That is the reality we run away from. We have
Can
people
you
who
repeat
can't
that? You can you repeat that? You said we.
we have crazy, stupid leaders who really know what needs to be done, but are comfortable when they are only comfortable. I mean, we have nepotism in our African politics. That is too much. That hinders growth. That hinders progress. We have, you look at classical issues like Zimbabwe. I've always given a Zimbabwean issue because I'm very well versed in it. You'll find that the country has so much potential. It has got literate people, but we keep on recycling the same leaders because of political interest. And for me, for a simple example, the reason why the country is like that is nobody was made to account for atrocities like Bukoya Woli and all this. So now people are not trying to safeguard their interest criminally to say if we let go of power, we can be indicted or we can be taken to international criminal court and the Hague and all that and all that. So you get people who have got selfish interests that can that can hinder the growth and prospects of a beautiful piece of land just because 1,000 or 2,000 people are being well taken care of. There are people today
So
who know what needs to be done, who are not in offices of influence. And we know who they are. I'll always give an example, just a simple example about our own Spike Masio as a billionaire. Love him or hate him, he has proven that he can tackle the corporate world. But you don't see him on any advisory board of our economy. Yet he has got resources that can actually fund our own budget. It's things like that that when we don't appreciate people with the necessary skill, and we still recycle the same old, for lack of a better word, or even if a better word to say garbage, we still recycle garbage and leaders who are carefree and are careless and they don't really care about people. And the only thing on their CV that justifies them being in a position of power is maybe a couple of years back they were at a rally holding a gun. They never shot that gun. They were singing war cries. You know, they feel entitled that we can run an entire generation. All right, I think I'm going
Okay.
to.
So let's not get emotional, and we need to wrap up.
It's
But
sad.
it's okay to be emotional. It's yeah, it's pretty sad. But one thing that I've been trying to, but this is on a personal level to do is I'm trying to continuously find a way not to put a blame on leadership,
exactly.
because
Yeah.
one of the things that I've realized is I'm a leader, and leadership needs to start with me. You'll find that when you get a group of 30 people sitting in a parliament or a government office or whatever, to some extent, they are actually a microcosm of that society.
Then,
But maybe this
sorry,
is a conversation for another day. Let me just finish that one, Paul. They are
just,
part of a microcosm of that society. I will explain this to you like this. In a lot of
uh,
these African countries where we say we have got bad leaders, where the
uh,
presidents don't want to resign, or you have been you know they've been recycling the same people in their cabinets. If you go in those same countries, if you go to the corporate world, if you go to the civil service, that disease is everywhere. That disease is actually a disease of the people. You find that you find a 75-year-old still holding a position. I was speaking to someone in one of these African countries who work for a government department, and was saying there was a training that was being sent to people overseas to get trained on new technology. He had just left school like 5 years, right? He's in his prime. The guys that he was initially selected to go, but he was removed. Guys that were in their 50s, a bunch of them were selected to go overseas to go and learn about this new technology and come and implement it. This is not government. You find this in the corporate world in these countries. You find this in government. So that's why I say this issue of leadership, it also starts with us.
No,
yes,
but
by the
50
person, by the
50
moment the
might not
person
be that
gets
bad.
that, yeah. Sorry.
50 years might not be that bad. I mean,
No.
when you're 60 maybe. It depends.
Listen, Berbet, if in a continent whereby more than 50% of the people are less than 25 years old, and you have an office where you have someone who's 25, who just left university 5 years ago, and there's new technology, you take a 50-year-old in place of a 25-year-old.
I would argue, I think that might be actually subjective in the sense, because you can still have this guy who come from 5 years ago from university. These guys can leave tomorrow. There's also that issue because they're still experimenting with life. I can change the life. Okay, you take them overseas and then they go. There has to be a policy of the company as well that governs these things. I think when you are 60 or 61, 60, maybe now we go like, okay, come on, not now. But if you are 50, let's say, for example, you still have 15 years before you actually retire. So at least maybe that person has been with the company for some time. Then we have to weigh our ways out that you just came from graduating, and chances are very high you can leave when you get a better offer because you're still young. Like now, you just left. So there is also a difference in policy.
Now let me. That is actually part of our problem. And I don't know if you have heard about this joke about a CFO and a CEO, where the CFO says, if we educate this person, and then what if we send them to school and then they leave the next day? And then the CEO says, but what if we don't educate them, upgrade them, and they stay with us forever? The part of the point I've seen, I think September Kwayo talking about this. Just here, when he talks about the fact that be comfortable to develop the country and not necessarily your company. Be comfortable to develop the continent and not necessarily your village. Be comfortable. So, if you are getting,
my issue is this. My issue is this thing. We had this kind of thing was from a kind of a government institute, which is CPUT, which I used to work for. We had this kind of discussion, right? The thing is, there are some people that they weigh with the policy to say if you are not above 50, right, or 50 something or 55, then some of these tours you're not supposed to go because it really doesn't benefit you. And if you're not in the company for a certain time, there are some regulations that they have to, because they have seen that they had this quite a bunch of people that they would train. They get trained, and then they go, or they train them, and then they ban it, and they say,
but the overall umbrella that deals with that is employment equity. There are actually labor laws that deal with all this. There's certain permissions and provisions that allows an organization to employment equity to really push certain individuals forward. It's not like you're being unfair, but you also look like you're saying at different aspects of the organization, from the company culture, etc., etc. However, I want to hit home what I was talking about. Leadership. The whole fiasco we have in Africa is leadership. It's actually not leadership, it's management. We have bad managers in Africa. And unfortunately, management is not something we're born with. Management is something we're trained into. We have people who are leading institutions with charisma more than they could have done.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul. Can you come again? You said the problem is not leadership, is
it's management.
Okay.
Africa has a lot of charismatic leaders, but very few managers. That is why right now, if you walk up in Africa, there's a church starting somewhere, there's a political party somewhere starting somewhere. There's a lot of leadership. But we don't have trained managers being promoted into positions. They have measured metrics that measure how they're going to perform. I'll give you a simple example. We have got the Minister of Transport in Zim. We have got Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma here in South Africa. And you have to have a measured metric of saying this person is going to perform well in this portfolio because they've got this and this and they were tested on that and that. But right now we don't have people who are in positions of influence based on measured metrics. We have people who are in positions of influence based on history and the things they did to liberate us. Well and fine, you liberated us, but now to move forward still, I'll give a simple example, and that will be my parting shot today. I'm a
Yeah.
soccer fan, I've always said this. I've been following Man United from Old Trafford since 1994. I don't know how old I was then. One thing that I've seen is that recently we've been firing managers. Every manager brings a certain level of performance to the club. Some players, some stadium, different performance just because of different managers. The responsibility has to be taken by the person who is leading. Even if it's one player who's not performing well, it reflects on your leadership style. You take the stick for it. So we have leaders in Africa who are not taking the stick for the mistakes that they're doing. Hats off to South Africa. South African politicians don't play. They will fire you and employ someone else. We have Montlante was employed for almost 8 months. We need to have accountable leaders who are fireable to say you're in a political position, but we should be able to fire you if you're not performing well. Before we can fire our leaders and do what we did to Mugabe in his later years, then we're not going anywhere. We don't have political players. We don't need secret cows in our politics.
Wow, that's
So
great. That's a great parting shot, by the way, Paul. We will get the parting shots from the others as we close. Yes, go ahead, Dorcas.
I hear what Paul is saying about leadership and management, but so we know that this has, like, our leadership has not served us well for a very long time, and we know that maybe their models don't really work, and we have things that we think work in our heads. But since now we've noticed that it doesn't work, why don't we then take responsibility for our own selves, for our own lives? Because we may wait for the next 100 years saying we want our leaders like this, like that, and they will never come. And then we'll keep blaming on them while we're just waiting for them doing something. Why don't we just take responsibility for ourselves and then do whatever we want to do and what we want to see, and not just blame it on our leaders?
Wow, that's a great input there. We need to take the initiative. We need to own it. We need to
Yeah.
take this and say it's ours and make it what we want it to be. Herbert, your parting shot.
Yeah, well, I think this whole problem that Paul has mentioned is just our own war that we have to fight, because these guys had to go with guns, but now we have to fight this one. We
Yeah.
have to also liberate the upcoming generation from these other guys, because we were just taken from one operation to another. This is a different one. Just that you should be able to sacrifice, to be beaten, to what, and to have to actually to fight this kind of thing. Because as long as you are going to try to do everything in the proper way, they're probably not going to listen anyway. I mean,
Yep.
that's not going to change. And if you cannot change, willing to fight, chances are very high you have to find a different avenue, like some of us did, but okay.
Wow. Okay. Great stuff, guys. It's been great having this conversation. We have to continue having these conversations throughout the month and throughout the week, just of saying, what does it mean to be African? What can we do to upgrade our continent? How can we contribute towards the growth and prosperity of our continent and of our people? So many young people. It really hits home. So many young people roaming around the streets, progress is not that significant, is not being seen. Poverty is found across the continent. So many people living on less than $1 a month. That less than $1 a day, that speaks volumes. Us, like what Dorcas has said, I use your word, Dorcas, to close this off, to say we have to stop blaming. We have to stop, looking forward to these guys that are going to come and help us. And we have to take the initiative and understand that let's make Africa be what we want it to be. Otherwise, cheers, guys. It's been a great conversation. Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Adios.